How would you describe yourself as a kid? Like, were you really social? Were you quiet?
Well, I was a little shy to myself, but I was outgoing. You know, being a b-boy at 12, we was going to New York. My parents would take us over there and we would see, go to Washington Square Park and I would see everything in there. Made me want to do that. Even if I knew I was this shy kid, I know doing that, I was, speaking out loud, but doing something I wanted to do that I saw others doing and then became good at it. So I would say, I was social because in order to be in that world, you have to befriend others. And where I lived at, I was like, say the school I went to was mostly Spanish, Puerto Rican, but up the hill was where the black people lived at in the projects. So I would go up there, and then it was people all the dudes that lived up there didn't get on the floor. They didn't b-boy, but they were pop. So we had a crew where we had two dudes from up the hill. They would come down and pop lock, but me and all the Spanish dudes, we doing all the b-boy shit, and we on the floor. So you had to be social in order, and then also, it's different languages. Some might not speak English, but so you still had to make that work. So I was very social, especially growing up a little bit more, just saying what you want to say. And I realized that in order to be a part of a lot of these things, you got to be open-minded to who's around you. And, I never had any racial anything like that. I think growing up around my Spanish friends, my friend Javier, Roberto, my boy Noel, now Noel, he was like Canelo. He had red hair. So I'm like, yo, how are you Spanish? And you got red hair. You look like a ginger, right? So it was things I had to understand. So then when his mom, when I went in his crib, she didn't speak no English, but she saw this black dude coming in her crib. And she asked her son, this your friend? She was speaking Spanish, but he would interpret and tell me what she would say. First thing she did was went in the kitchen or offered me some food. And from there, every time I came over his house, first thing coming to do it, food. So she understood that my language was like, yeah, I'm going to feed him. So, and this was like one of my b-boy friends. So a lot of my friends was like that. And the school I went to was across the street from where he lived. So it was a couple of houses, like a row of houses where a lot of those people went to the school too. So I didn't live too far. So I wound up being friends with these cats outside the school. So definitely was social growing up.
That's really interesting because, like, when you hear people talk about the early days of hip hop and everything now, because of the FBA argument and everything, people talk about, oh, like there was racism. They didn't really rock with us like that. And there was, so you didn't personally experience that at all.
Nah, I mean, because like not being from New York, being from New Jersey, a lot of people from New York, though, we were so far away. We are a Hudson River across from y'all. So, the only thing different from y'all is the channels on the TV, but we got the same radio station, the same TV station. We did the same thing each other see. So we would get hip hop in the same way like everybody else in the world. But because we were right there, it was accessible. So when you talk about everybody learning this thing all at the same time, clearly I remember me and these dudes, like, you saw this on TV. So we saw all these different people doing it too. You saw black people, you saw Puerto Ricans, but this is what New York consisted of. So I can never say I can say who started it because I know. But when you're in these neighborhoods and you're watching all this stuff on TV and you see the participants, you can't be that ignorant to think that even if one culture started it, it wasn't meant to stay with one culture. Hip hop wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for that. It was like being on the block when you got a pair of sneakers and you come outside and that one weekend you might be the only one that got those sneakers. By the next weekend, everybody got those sneakers. You go to another city, you go to somewhere else, they got the sneakers too. This is how it worked. So we all was learning this at the same time. Me and them same dudes that I talked about, we in the gym in school, because we saw New York Hot Tracks and we saw Style Wars and we saw Beat, Wild Style. We in the gym all together trying to learn how to do windmills. At that point, you're not thinking about who started this first, because I want to know before we get started learning how to do windmills and backspins and handspins and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, what we doing? You know what I'm saying? I didn't think everybody had to pass the test to the originator to say, now can I do it? No. Because they were doing it in Manhattan, they were doing it in Bronx, they were doing it in Harlem, they were doing it in Brooklyn. So once everybody got to knowing how to do this, it just spread. And I didn't think everybody thought it was going to spread like that. But this is why you have these legends in this game, like where, Green Wizard Theodore, they didn't think that what am I doing? I'm just making shit up as I'm going along. But others came along and perfected what they was doing. So you have everybody participating. But even when they were doing it, I don't think they were doing it was like, hey, wait, you Puerto Rican, you can't do it because black people started. Hey, you can't b-boy because most of the b-boys that are on the floor are Spanish. So black people, you can't do that. So like, that's not how this was working back then. It's not how it works now, because now you got Americans, Asians, Europeans, you name it, all doing hip hop in their own way and in their own language. And not one person can tell everybody to stop doing that, because that's not what hip hop was meant to be or consist of.
And I want to touch on that a little bit later, but you started b-boying because you were into gymnastics, right? Like you were already skilled in the flips and all that.
Yeah.
So when did you get into graffiti?
It was all at the same time. Like I said, like when you hear about these things happening on the street, and once you meet a person that's into it, like graffiti, I got into it because I draw, so I'm an artist too. So once I went to the Bronx Zoo, and from seeing that, just the trip alone on the train coming from Jersey, and when we got to Manhattan and we got on those trains, I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, so I'm seeing this in my face because I saw it on TV. It was a new thing happening. So my father didn't know what was going on. My brothers and them, they ain't know nothing. So we on the train, and I'm looking at when the train pulled up, I'm looking at the train like, this is crazy. And then I'm standing there. My father's like, get your ass on the train. I'm looking to get on the train. Then it's all on the inside, all the tags. So I'm just soaking all of this in. And my father don't even realize what's happening to me. I'm just quiet going all the way over there. So once we got to the last stop and we got on the train again, I'm looking at it. They walking. I'm looking at the train standing there, just mad at these little dudes standing there, just train going by. I'm like this. Oh, wow. Man, my father was yelling at me, come on, what are you doing? We go outside the train station, and when I saw the Bronx, that scene where they have Ronald Reagan and that lady yelling at him, like, what you gonna do for us? That was real. We saw that on TV, but when I saw that and they actually was there, I was like, damn, it looked like a war. Like really abandoned buildings, half buildings standing, and just dope things everywhere. And we went through all of that, went to the zoo, did all of that, coming back home, same thing. But I'm walking around like, oh man, this is New York. Like same Manhattan. We in Harlem, we in the Bronx. All that shit. So like when I'm now coming back home, same thing, soaking everything in. Got back in the crib, what comes on TV? Same day, Star Wars on PBS. I'm like, oh, whoa. So this comes on now. Everybody in the house be watching it. And my father started figuring it out. He said, oh, that's why your ass was sitting there watching the train. Oh, you think you're going to be doing this? You getting in trouble writing on walls? So for me, that's when I got into it, and to me, people that was legends in my hood, my man, Nas, Tame was one. I saw his name everywhere, but I never knew what he looked like. And this was early, man. We was all teenagers, and I'm seeing all this stuff. So I got into it, b-boying first, and then graffiti. I knew a DJ that lived down the street from me, so I learned how to DJ from him. So this is like, you pick up on all this stuff. It's like phases.
So at the time you were living in Irvington, New Jersey, right? And you mainly saw like homeboy characters, like, but you didn't see like graffiti. You saw some tags and things like that.
Right.
And it wasn't until the Bronx Zoo when you went, that's when you saw it like on that
Yeah, that's
level.
when I saw real graffiti, right? Because all we saw in the hood back then was like people that were trying to do it, and homeboy characters and stuff like that. Spark S, so when I was in Irvington, and then when I moved to Newark, that's when all the stuff I just told you I met, that's when I got into it. And then just seeing it on TV, keep going back and forth to New York with my parents, and still it was like we started going by ourselves. But I wasn't writing on trains. I wasn't still writing on walls. I was getting a lot of stuff done through like airbrush T-shirts and stuff like that. And I didn't know too many people that was into that. And then that's when I started figuring out who everybody was, and as far as Tame and all these. And I met them later on. But I picked up, the round part I picked up in high school, sophomore, junior year. So, like I said, you pick up on these things as you go along, and you learn how to do all of this stuff. It's just, you figure out which one you're good at. As we were growing up, some people couldn't rap, they gravitated toward the DJ thing. But a lot of people did everything. I know dudes that's like that right now. And there's some guys I know that's good at all the elements. Everybody ain't good at all the elements.
So in your neighborhood, you guys actually had something similar to what Fat Beats became later on, as far as like a hub where people would go, and it was so like instrumental to the community. And for you guys, that place was Moving Records.
Yes.
And you would have people like Red Alert and stuff come through.
Yeah. And I met Red Alert there. I mean, all the rappers would come there. It was a woman, and my mom just told me she saw this woman. Her name is Abby. She ran the store, and she was like a staple in the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody from New York came there, and I remember going to her store as a kid and a teenager and just staring at all these records. I remember Grand Puba, Masters of Ceremonies. I stared at their first album cover for days, walking past it, going in and out of the store until I finally bought it. And I was, once you start buying records, you feel like you're doing something. So I hope one day that the way I bought records and listened to them and sat with it with the headphones on in front of the radio to learn the words and everything like that, that was one day I would hope that would be like that for me, which did happen, but like that was a dream. That as a kid, you didn't think of doing this, but as I got more serious, you just start dibbling dabbling. But Moving Records was the place to be. Down you would get your fix, because also you knew on Saturdays she would have somebody come in and do an install.
Mm. And DJ Viral was someone in the neighborhood that you guys went to with a few records, asking him to blend, right? So you guys could make a tape?
Yeah. My man, Pyro, yeah. So, and Pyro was dope because he knew martial arts. So we would go in his room. He had turntables and ninja stars and swords and shit hanging around. So, but the funny part, we went to Moving Records to buy the breakbeat records, and we bought one of each record, but like we didn't buy doubles. So when we came to him and we bought all the records, he was like, "This is dope," but like, guess what? Now the record store closed. He said, "Yeah, I got to go back to the store." Now that was like maybe Saturday, so we had to wait until Monday because she was closed on Sunday. So we went back to him, and all of the records he did, he just pretty much made mixtapes, but would blend, run the record long enough to where on the tape we would have some records to rhyme to or write to, and that's how that started. And I had a crew, but I wasn't really, rhyming yet. I was writing for these two cats that was with me, and then somehow that didn't work out. One of the dudes moved, and then that's when I got serious to think like, let me see how I may sound doing this. Of course, you wind up sounding like the people you listen to. So right. I sounded like Kane and Rakim and Had the whole look, flat top, part to my hair, valleys, but wasn't valleys, but they look like them. But I'm looking like the guy that I emulate on TV.
What age is it that you start writing rhymes? It's around 11, 12 too?
I would say 14,
14.
15.
Because you were DJing a little bit before this, right?
Yeah, I mean, but DJing, like, having the little turntable set up in your room with the turntable on the top, and you DJing with the knob as your fader on the volume, you trying to do something with that. You making pause takes, and that's what everybody was doing.
You got to work with what you got, man. That's
exactly, bro. Exactly. So like, I knew how, but like I said, I knew how to DJ because of Pyro. So whenever if I did get on some turntables, I kind of knew what I was doing, but he didn't show me nothing else. He just showed me how to go back and forth. But later on, I learned how to do all that. But, like I said, pick up on all these things and try to be good at them at least to where, and I remember my DJ Chaos said this. He said, "Oh, you know what? You got good enough to where if I had to go to the bathroom and you was right here, I'll like, do whatever you got to do. I'll be right back." And he'll probably stand there after he done and watch me, about good 10. He said, "You good for that?" So, but he said, just keep practicing. So, like I said, you pick up all these things and you learn, and it's just another elemental tool that you pick up.
What was your first rap name? Was it MCL?
Yes.
How did you come up with that?
Because my name, it was MCL, and then it turned into MCL to Sensei. I don't know. Sensei came from my friends because I cut hair. So on Saturdays, a couple of dudes would come to my crib because I would go down to the barbershop down the street and people would be waiting in line. And I was standing there, they looking at my haircut like, "Damn, cut your hair." I said, "Me." They said, "Work? What, on your own?" Like, "Yeah." So they like, "You can cut mine." I would charge them like, $8, $5, $6, $7, something like that. And while I'm cutting one and everybody else sitting there, my room only fit like 3 people. So while I'm cutting one head, I'm, playing anime movies and kung fu movies. So it was one time I was cutting the dude head and I cut his shit really nice and sharp. And his man was like, "See," and he heard the dude on TV say, "Oh, Sensei, Sensei." He said, "See, look, that's you." He said, "Look at that sharp that shit that used like a Sensei blade on the haircut." I was like, "Wow, you know what? I might just keep that." He left and I thought about that. I said, I might just keep that. But then I just, chopped the MT off. Because we come from a time where acronyms, people's names stood for something, so it was not so much that, but it's like I think of my name and I think about names later on, like Elder Head Toucher. That's my man too. So it's like we had names that was something, meant something, or was an abbreviation of something, where then you had some people that was just their name, Keith Murray, Eric Sermon. Redman, but you also know he's Reggie Noble. So Paris Smith, some people just went with their name. So, I didn't want to be too flashy, but because of the Kung Fu and because of the anime, the Sensei stuff.
That's so dope that you were so influenced at that time early on with the Kung Fu movies and the anime. Were a lot of your friends influenced by that during that time?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I would tell you one dude that was a major, major collector and just on that with my man Lakim Shabazz. Like him, we would go to Locke's crib to watch all the damn Kung Fu movies. So we would go and, sit there you would get lost in a few hours. Like you smoke one and another one, then the movie be over. You wind up watching another one. And, that was all of us. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's why I knew having them watch the movies while they waited, they wouldn't want to leave. So, but by the time I'm finished cutting 2 other heads, look, dude ain't even leave. They got his first haircut. He's like, I'm stay here and watch because he didn't know what else I was going to play. So that was the thing. You get the treat of watching the movie and getting a dope haircut. So, but that was pretty much our era in the 90s was that's why Wu-Tang.
Right.
That's why everybody gravitated toward Wu-Tang, not just for their rhymes, but because they was into the same thing everybody else was into, especially in the 90s. Because these VHS tapes and everything was prevalent. You know, it was like you had everything went from TV to videotape. Yo, I got it. You was able to collect it.
Let me ask you something then, right? Like to piggyback off of what we were talking about earlier, how hip hop has become for everyone. Now, with when you guys were watching anime and watching martial arts films and stuff like that, it wasn't like you guys were trying to piggyback off the culture as far as like appropriate the culture. You guys were appreciating the
Right.
culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that when it comes to hip hop, it's the opposite? That when other cultures participate, a lot of times people view it as you're appropriating black culture or our culture versus like, no, like they really do have a love for what you guys have created.
I think it's a thing once somebody else becomes successful at it when they didn't originate it. And I think that got to do with a lot of things in just life in general. Where it's always an issue if someone starts something. I mean, we can go back in time, you know what I'm saying? And it's real. But no different than Mick Jagger and Little Richard. If Little Richard didn't bring them in to expose them to what he was doing, they wouldn't have been able to learn how to sing like that. It's a lot of it. It's musical history, you know what I'm saying? But this is the thing, you know what I'm saying? Whether we talk about Elvis, Chuck Berry, you name it, it's always going to be. But these people saw their futures go from one thing and then there's got, you see people come in and go through the door. But it's some people that's not as original. And I think with hip hop, because it started where it started, I mean, it's people in hip hop right now that's not in America that like killing it. And it's like almost like how former sports stars are, where it's like NBA, they really soft, and NFL, you soft, but they making all this money. So when the issue for the older people back then that talk about sports now, there wasn't enough money. They played in the hard era. It's a not fair thing, but it's also turned into you ain't supposed to do this thing because it ain't start with you. It's like the world trade. It's like the world trade. We all need something from somebody in order to live, and we all living in this industry where no one can tell you not to do something. It's a free world. You can do what you want. But it's also like a thing though where I think people have to accept when people are so good at it, you cannot like discredit them. There's a lot of people that came after a lot of artists, like I said, that are successful. And you hear them say, the older artists or the people that's not as successful, like these people are supposed to do something for us because they become successful. A lot of people don't owe nobody nothing. But like I said, as things grow and Eminem been through it, so it's like, it's sad, because a lot of us wouldn't be here a lot of people don't buy records, but a lot of other people do buy records. It's an on and on thing, but I think that when everybody tastes success, it is good when everybody can win, but the world's not built like that. So, it's all in what you do. It's all in how you represent it. You got Cypress Hill. You got, a lot of female MCs, whether white, black, Spanish, Asian, they don't even get, as a woman, they don't get they just do. So when you imagine what they up against, like all the time. So now you're talking about, I always get people to understand when you go out into the world as an artist, imagine You want to go to Sweden and Switzerland and all these countries and these mountains, and they know something that you said in the past, where they're like, yo, nah, you know what? We can't book you here because of your views on how you feel about this, that, and the third. Guess what? They got the right not to let you in. But that's not what they're doing. Everybody has been able to go through these gates, and everybody still should. There's no one person to tell you what you can and cannot do, where something that was done by people that didn't realize even what they was doing just happened to blow the hell up. And everybody wanted to do it. We wouldn't be in Europe right now performing if it wasn't for that. You know, so I always get people to remember, like, how this all started. These things started where people couldn't be racial. It was a lot of things that was unfair. There's a lot of shit where a lot of people didn't get just due. People work, have been working. Those that are jealous are the ones that's not working no more. Feel like they owed something. But everybody put in their 2 cents when we doing this. It's your way of how you do it and how people take it and if they like it or not. And pretty much that's the end of it because, like I said, for a lot of the things that happened in the past, whether people that own record labels, radio stations, you can watch any unsung episode, it's all right there in front of you. But a lot of people wasn't stifled to do what they wanted to do because everybody got their dream. It ain't always fair, but you have your dream. So, you know, I just feel like everybody should be able to do this, you know, especially if you got the means to do it. You know, a lot of people may not have the means to do it, but they grow. And they start and they be and no one person to tell somebody what they can and can't do. I'm gonna keep saying that. Because if that would have been the case, we wouldn't have had a record deal or not. Nothing.
I think that there's a level of sensitivity when it comes to this because, like you said, because of previous genres created by Black people that were taken over. And now, when you think of that genre, you think of a white artist versus a Black artist, right? You
Right.
know, and I think that putting a blanket over a group of people and saying that all people apply to this, like all white people are with this intention to exploit the culture or something like
Right.
that
Right.
is wrong in a sense of because any stereotype
There you
to
go.
that level or to like a blanket
Right.
statement is going to be incorrect no matter what it's about, right? You know, you can't say
Right. Right.
all Black people are this way or all what you, it just doesn't work, you know. But I think that there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Like when you come into the culture, like paying homage to those that laid the groundwork for you to be here and do what you do is really important. But you can also say that there are a lot of Black artists, especially today, that don't do it for the ones that put them in
Support them.
position now. So it's not necessarily always a race thing. It's just like as
Right.
time goes on.
It's like I said, it's a success thing. It's like even through each other being Black, when you see the deaths, a lot of these things are jealousy. A lot of these, dudes become targets because somebody mad because they win. So it's the same thing with this music. We all trying to do the same thing. When you on Instagram, it may be with a dude that's doing more than you, and then there's somebody else over there that's like, I hate both of y'all because I'm not winning.
Right.
And why is it working for you and not for me? And this is where it gets crazy because everybody feel like they should get a fair shot. But if you're not as good as the next dude over here, that's just it. And the rules still apply from when we started making records until today, because it's less people making records today. But even if they're making records today, they're not putting it out. A lot of people don't understand what it takes to put out a lot of records today. It's really like, I know I'm probably going off of what I was, because
Right.
I won't mess up saying what I'm saying now to go over something else. But, I will say it's just that in a nutshell, same cultures, different cultures. I think that when you see one person winning more than the next, it becomes a problem because that person ain't doing what the other one do.
Mm.
And then they start talking, yo, we ain't even supposed to be da. Like, well, what? And then when these things come out, you're like, who said they wasn't supposed to? So when we start having these debates, and everybody, and when you see all the comments be crazy, when I be looking like, wow. Like, y'all don't even realize, like, y'all telling people, like, you can't do that. I'm like, why? Like, what? Tell me why. Especially if I'm good at it. Like, yeah. Like, come on, man. So it just sounds crazy to me.
I mean, that would be really weird to me if somebody said, "Oh, you can't practice martial arts because you're not Asian or
Because in the
you're,
Japanese days and Chinese, right? There we go.
You see,
that's like to say, if I want to wear a nice suit and it happened to be an Italian suit, to do it in the club, like, but you're not Italian, brother. You can't. You black. You gonna have to get you a black person to style and design you, and you know that the Italian fit is custom, tailored down. So imagine that. Like, imagine, that's what's crazy with Trump, where he like, everybody get out, but your ass like some Taco Tuesday, and you like some Chinese food, but you don't want people here. Like, it doesn't work like that, man. So it's like, I think we getting, because of this, a lot of this, I think we getting to a point where people just like, it's 2026. We done been to Corona, get out of Corona. Everybody's still trying to get back to normal. So a lot of things not normal no more.
Mm.
And we're into new territory with a lot of these things. That's why, you look at you notice this year, you ain't seen nobody putting up no Spotify wrap up. Remember all the last couple of years, everybody put their wrap up, they streamed and shit like, now I noticed this, nobody did nothing.
That's true,
Nobody
man. I was
nothing.
just thinking that too. I was like,
right.
Oh, it's the end of the year. Here we go. Everybody's gonna start putting up
Everybody,
their wrap up numbers, and all of a sudden, I didn't see it. I was like, damn, this is a little weird.
Yeah, indeed, bro. Motherfuckers, everybody got it. When people were like, they like, you know what? That shit for the birds. You know what I'm saying? Like, we about to go back into like who got money, because that's the only way your record coming out. And I ain't do it yet, but the magic word for this year, and you tell everybody else the same thing. For anybody that's making music today, merch, and you name it, anything you're trying to sell, the word, and I wish I had some effects when it come over my head. Investment, everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what it's going to take for everybody not to crash out for 2026. You know what I'm saying? Like, and be brave about it. You know what I'm saying? I don't mess up the next question, whatever. But yeah, everybody just understand